Hey everyone, this is Jen and you're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively live and manage your borderline personality disorder. My videos are aimed at a problem and solution-based approach, which means that I will talk about common issues, problems, things that those of us with BPD come up against, and offer you my own insight and skills on how to manage those more effectively and lead a more effective life. In addition, I also lean heavily on DBT skills. If you're a family member or a loved one or just anyone else that's interested in positive approaches to discussing BPD, you are also in the right place. And there is a section of videos just for you entitled Family Vids for the Family, and I'll put up a link there. I am not a therapist or a psychologist or a PhD. However, I can answer one question that all of those folks cannot, which is, what is it like to live with BPD? I have lived with the disorder officially for the last 21 years, enrolling myself in about a half dozen DBT classes, doing the work, going to the classes, going to the group sessions, going to the one-on-one, doing the research, reading the books, doing the workbooks at home. You get the idea. I'm pretty committed. While PhD channels like Dr. Daniel Fox are super helpful, and I highly recommend checking out Dr. Daniel Fox's channel, I'll put up a link here as well. I also must recommend that and remind you that while those folks are helpful and they do have PhDs, they don't have the disorder. And so they are able to help you by talking to those of us with BPD and researching and reading. However, to truly know and live with it, you must walk a mile in someone's shoes, right? And so that's the aspect that I can help you with. So if that sounds good to you, please hit subscribe and the bell below so you never miss a beat. I produce anywhere from 4 to 6 videos each week, and I'd love you to check them out. So today I want to talk about a topic that the human race has encountered, and that is rejection. How to deal with rejection, and more specifically, how to deal with rejection if you have BPD. If you haven't checked out my friend Kim Poster's channel, that's Kim and then space Poster, please give her channel a shout out and take a look. She has an anecdotal approach from a perspective of living with BPD, where she uses Sims. I think it's really cool. And there's a lot of humor, and she puts up a lot of funny things. And I think, you know, you cannot forget the humor when you're trying to improve yourself. And so check that out. And I watched one of her videos today, and so that kind of inspired me to think about a video about rejection. So let's get right into it. Let's get one thing straight. Everyone deals with rejection, not just those of us with BPD, but the entire human race has at one point or another dealt with rejection. You don't get chosen for a sports team. You weren't the most popular in school. You didn't get a job offer. Your boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with you. You experience rejection on a daily basis sometimes, you know, whether it's small or it's large. So the first thing to note is that BPD is a disorder, but rejection is a human element that all humans deal with, except the thing is that with borderline, it's more magnified when it happens, isn't it? Now, why is that? Well, if you have BPD, like me, you are already afraid to open yourself up to people. You feel a constant anxiety in some social situations, not all the time. You have abandonment issues. You're afraid people will leave you. You have panic attacks when you think that you are about to be left. You feel scared to open yourself up, and you have object constancy issues. And I just did a video about object constancy, and so I'll put that link up as well. The idea here is that for those of us with BPD, much like anything, remember, we deal with that emotional fibromyalgia, that it hurts more intensely for us. The idea of rejection is more magnified. So let's get right into it. And I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to handle rejection in this video through the lens of having BPD. And I'm going to start off with the story. Do you like my new Christmas mug? I know. I always used to be like that person, like, why do people like drink their mugs on these videos? And now I'm like, oh, my mug's so cute. It was a Christmas present from a friend. Anyway, I hope you had a Merry Christmas as well. So I live in a building, and in our building we have a courtesy police officer, a local police officer. Now, when I say courtesy officer, he helps out our building with certain things, you know. He's not a full-time guard or anything like that, but he, you know, he has some ins that many of us don't. So the other day, and he and I have seen eye to eye on many issues, but I've often talked to him about my frustrations about the things that happen in this building, criminal activity, management's lack of response. I have a very low opinion of the management company here, and I have a very low opinion of a lot of my neighbors. We're talking weed smoking, we're talking people that don't pick up after their dog shit, we're talking about loud music, we're talking about domestics, we're talking about people with felonies, you know, and I've learned a lot from him. And so he's a white cop, and he's very muscular, and so the other day, a couple of days ago, we had this alarm going off in our, this was on Christmas Eve, we had an alarm going off, and I got off the lobby elevators, and I was going to leave to go to work. So my animals were upstairs and in my home, and I heard all of these loud alarms going off. There were blue lights flashing. It wasn't a smoke alarm. But so I texted him and I said, hey, I said, can you come downstairs? I'm not sure what's happening. So he comes downstairs. He's investigating it. It's really loud. People are starting to gather. They're wondering what's going on. And he says, you know, I'll try calling the property manager. So he calls both property managers and they don't pick up. Of course they don't. So I said, well, do you have the maintenance engineers numbers? There's 2 of them. And he's like, no, I don't have those numbers. And I was like, how could you not have those numbers? And so I gave them to him. So we texted with the maintenance engineer guy, and I texted with him and I said, should we call the fire department while you're on your way back? Because he lives like, you know, an hour away. He's like, I'm on my way, definitely call the fire department. So we called the fire department and they came. And so as we're sitting there waiting for the fire department, I'm chatting with this cop and the one that lives in my building. And he and I were talking, and I said to him, now, I was like, how could you not have the maintenance engineer's phone numbers? Like, that seems really weird. And he looked at me, and remember, we both have our masks on, so it's hard to see exactly what was going on underneath his facial expressions. But I said to him, how could you not have their phone numbers? And he goes, he looks up, he was texting, and he goes, just like this, well, I don't have any issues. And then he went back to texting. And I, you know, immediately I felt this like, oh, he's talking about me. He's personalizing it. Like he's dissing me right now. And I wanted to be like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, like I wanted to defend myself. Like I felt this need to defend myself, right? I mean, I think those of us with BPD are often quick to defend ourselves in situations where we feel like we're being attacked. And in that situation, I kind of did feel like I was being attacked. And so, but I didn't. I just sat there and I kind of looked out the window and I kept my body calm. I didn't change my body position. I didn't engage the conversation further. And the first things, and here are the things that quickly popped into my mind. He's judging me. He's telling me I'm a bad person. He's telling me that I complain too much and that I have a lot of issues and dust-ups with people. He's telling me that I should just cool it. Like, why do I have so many complaints all the time? He's telling me that he's easy to get along with people. Why can't I get along with people very easily, right? So these are all of the like inner dialogues. And then I stopped myself and I looked out the window and I thought, I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he meant. And I have a tendency to be like, well, what did you mean? What did you mean? Right? And you know, we ask a lot of questions because we want clarity, because sometimes with those of us with BPD, we can't figure out exactly what we meant or what somebody else meant. And so I didn't though, because, you know, we had an emergency situation going on. It wasn't the time to even get on to that conversation. 2, he's not really a close friend. He's just a neighbor. And 3, I don't know what he meant. You know, he could just mean, He could have meant a number of things, right? He could have meant like he never has any maintenance issues in his apartment, right? So he doesn't need to have the maintenance guy's numbers. He could mean that he keeps to himself. He could mean that he fixes his own plumbing. I don't know. It could be anything. The point is that I didn't really care too much to get into a discussion. I felt like I wanted to defend myself, but at the same time, I thought, I don't know what he means. It's not really worth it for me to get into it, and so I'm not going to get into it. So subsequently, the fire department came. They cleared the situation. He and I sat there. I didn't leave or run out or burst into tears, all things that I've done in the past that are very jarring to people. Don't forget, if that happens, and it will happen for you, just remember that it can be very jarring for the other person to experience that. So he and I had gone back and forth, and I had made a bunch of cheesecakes for Christmas. And so I had kept running into him. I said, you know, would you like some cheesecake? You know, I really appreciate what you do as a police officer. Would you like some cheesecake? And he said yes. And so after this whole situation, when the fire department left, he said, hey, can I get that cheesecake? And I said, sure. He came up to my apartment. I gave him the cheesecake. He petted my dog. You know, we kind of joked again about management, and he left, and everything was fine, right? Nothing, no blow-ups. So let's talk about now my 5 tips for handling rejection in relation to this story, and let's walk through it. Let's ask ourselves some questions. First of all, the number 1 tip that I want to communicate to all of you is that the most important thing in anything is self-validation. Now, you hear all of these warning signs from self-help psychologists and articles that like, beware a toxic person. They want validation. They're a toxic person. They're a toxic person. Okay, I get it. But toxic is a super label, okay? That's not helpful to anyone and brings with it a lot of stigma. What if you, instead of reading something like toxic person asks for validation, what about, you know, emotionally sensitive, low self-esteem person asks for validation? I get it that it can be over time toxic, but they're not toxic people. And so again, like, go to my resources video about what are some good resources to look for when you're searching for self-help books or videos or YouTube channels. They don't use judgmental, hot language, okay? So, and I'm going to do a separate video on that about what to look for. Anyway, I digress. So the first thing is hone in more and more each time that you can on your own self-validation, okay? Remind yourself of the following phrase. I care more about what I think about me than what they think about me. Another way to phrase that is, what do I think about me, right? So in that conversation where he said to me very briefly, we're talking a 10-second fleeting conversation or phrase, I don't have any issues like that. Okay, the first thing I said to, one of the first things I said to myself is, well, I like me and I do have issues and it's okay to speak up for them. Boom. That's self-validation. Okay. I like me. Okay. There's nothing that I do that I feel guilty about. There's nothing that I've done out of line, right? Yes, I may be very vocal. That's okay with me. I'm totally fine with that. You know, when he said this phrase, like, I don't have any issues, you know, later on during that day, I thought, well, yeah, of course you don't. You're a white cop who brings his police cruiser home and you have a bunch of muscles. Of course you don't have many issues in the building. They're probably like, yes, how can we help you? Right? So something maybe that like he's not even aware of by saying this. So it doesn't matter though, because I like me and he's entitled to his opinion, but what's more important is my opinion, which is how I feel about myself. Tip number 2, consider, are you really being rejected? It's that gray area, right? It's that black and white area that's so hard for us sometimes to break out of when you have BPD. And to, sweetie, sorry, Christmas loot. You must try to think as much as possible in that gray area, that colored thinking, okay? So one good way to do this is to say, am I being rejected? Let me check the facts of this situation. Now, in this situation, this relationship with him is not very deep. It's pretty superficial. So honestly, it's not really worth it to me to, use my time to check the facts with him, because what's actually more important to me is how I feel about me, which is tip number 1. I like me, so whatever he seems to think is fine with him, but it doesn't hurt me as much. It would have 10 years ago. That could have ruined my whole day or my Christmas, right? I could have honed in on that and like ruminated and ruminated. I've done another video about rumination and how to break free of that, right? But say that this relationship was deeper to me, right? Or in another context, I can give you examples about when I've gone for job interviews and I think the job interview has gone like terribly, right? Like I've had 3 interviews, but I haven't heard from them in a week. And I'm convinced I'm not getting the job. They've talked to someone else has given them some, you know, bad feedback on me. They're not going to like me now, right? And then I'll end up getting the job. So in checking the facts, you have to stay in the present moment in that gray thinking, which is hard because object constancy, that idea to keep a person or a situation or a conversation positively in your mind after that person or situation has left the room, is very difficult. It's recall. It's that peekaboo game. I've done another video about object constancy. That's what really leads to problems with borderline personality disorder, because it's when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And then you start ruminating and thinking, well, what did he really mean in that conversation? Maybe I shouldn't have said this in the interview. And it leads to a spiral. You have to use your tips to pull yourself out of that. But remember that you are very sensitive, which is great. Being a sensitive person is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. There's so many wonderful things about being an overly sensitive person. But remember the object constancy as well. Go back to your goals. What is it that I want out of this situation? If out of this situation for me, I want to like keep a neighborly, friendly relationship with this cop in my building, and I'd like to have a, you know, cop and not in my back pocket, but, you know, somebody that I could rely on for information or be on my side, I would like to keep that rapport, right? So asking yourself, am I really being rejected, by checking the facts can be very helpful for you to walk in the next step that you're going to step in. Tip number 3 is to consider, does this person's comments have any validation? Remember, in DBT, they teach you not to validate the invalid. What does that mean? If someone says to you, I'm so fat, I should kill myself, it's not generally helpful to be like, yes, you're very fat, you should kill yourself. But probably a more helpful perspective, hi sweetie, is to say, you sound like you're really suffering. Would you like to talk about it? Right? So you're tapping into that person's suffering. You're validating that they're feeling low because their feelings are very real to them, but you are not saying, you are not agreeing with this concept that they are fat and they should kill themselves. Okay. So after I kind of went back and I started thinking about like, well, you know, does he have a point? Let's say he was talking about me. Does he have a point? Does his words have any validation? And I think maybe they do. You know, I think that there's always a middle ground to consider. There's always room for improvement. And again, I didn't really check the facts with him, so I'm not really sure of what he meant. But sure, do I bring up a lot of issues? Do I fight for my rights all the time? Do I point out every injustice? Yeah, I do that a lot. Like, could I tone that down a bit? Yeah, I could probably maybe do that. So there is some validation there, right? And, you know, searching for rooms of self-improvement is a strong thing. And remember, just because I am looking at these things for self-improvement does not mean I hate myself. Oh, no, I do not hate myself. It can be easy to beat up on yourself. Oh God, why do I complain so much? Oh God, see, my BP will never get better. Oh God, like he hates me. I'm going to be friendless. No, the person with strength and balls is in therapy working on themselves. They are the people watching these kinds of videos or making these kinds of videos or reading the workbooks. Therapy is not for the weak, my friends. You will not, if you are in therapy, congratulations, you are not weak. You're very strong. To look up your own butthole and be like, what, you know, are the things I can improve on, takes strength. So you can consider if the other person's comments have validation, but at the same time, you don't need to let it permeate you. You don't need to let it ruin your day. You don't let it need to supersede what you think about you, but you can also take it up for improvement work on improving yourself while loving yourself at the same time. And that's gray area. Okay. Tip number 4, deal with rejection like a pro. What does that mean? Let's say you've done steps 1, 2, 3, and you are definitely being rejected, and you know their comments do not have any validation, and you have decided that you really like who you are. Well, bye. Bye, girl, bye. Like, you know, isn't it better for someone that doesn't want to be in your life to walk away? Isn't it better if you don't get a certain job? Do you really want to be in a job that doesn't want you? Do you really want to be in a friendship or relationship with someone who's not really invested in it like you are? No, no, no. And that took me a long time. You know, it took me a long time to be like, I don't want to be with people who don't want me, period. And I'm not going to try to convince them otherwise. You know, I remember I was in a supermarket with a boyfriend, and the checkout clerk, I mean, she was being playful, but you know, she kind of like hit on my boyfriend a little bit at the time. And, you know, I don't care, like, dust off my shoulder. First of all, I didn't think it was actually very serious. And second of all, you know, I walk around with this concept that like, okay, well, if he's going to cheat on me or he's going to walk away, that's up to him. You know, what am I going to do? Chase somebody who doesn't want me? No, no, no. Get your bags. You gotta go, sir. And she's like, oh, you know, aren't you? And again, she was like, you know, 15 years our senior. She was just kind of like being playful, but she's like, oh, aren't you going to try to stop him from leaving? And I'm like, no. Would you like him? And I said to him, would you like to go? I mean, you know, and also in jest, but the underlying truth being that if he wants to go, or if he doesn't want to be with me, well then goodbye, like peace be with you. Like, you must go live your life. I do not want anyone who does not want me. Now that took a long time. Why? Because those of us with BPD live so close to the flesh of, I am validated by someone else. My worth is determined by how much work I get done, how many friends I have. That's like mine, right? Like how many friends I have equals what my self-worth is. You know, how much money I have means I'm successful, right? But if you are truly being rejected, or if someone's truly leaving with you, as much grief or sadness that may bring, remind yourself that it might make you feel even worse if you try to go after them or become desperate and keep them in your life when they don't really want you. I don't think that's something that you want, is it? Okay. I mean, I used to not be able to deal with going without a boyfriend month to month, you know? I mean, I would like break up with somebody on a Monday or be broken up with somebody on a Monday, and by like Tuesday morning I'd be like on OkCupid or Match or something like that. Like, I've got to find someone, I've got to replace this. Like, you know, who am I going to watch Netflix with? Who am I going to talk to every day? Who am I going to send funny memes to? But you know, now I'm in this space where I'm like, I mean, I haven't had a boyfriend for a year, and prior to that, I didn't have a boyfriend for a year, and then prior to that, it was like 18 months, right? So like now I'm like, well, that's fine. I mean, I'm looking for the right one, not for the one right now. I mean, I know that's an old cheesy phrase, but it's true, right? Like now I'm totally fine being single. Sure, would I like to have sex? Sure, sure. I mean, would I like somebody to like hold my hand? Yeah. Would I like somebody to like bounce off with? Yes. But I also know that like there are still things that I'm working on to improve myself, which can only improve my relationships, like anger management and patience, and, you know, working on myself and creating my business to be stronger, things like that. Okay. Tip number 5 and final tip here is to take things slowly with anything, whether you are dealing with about to start an argument with someone, or question something, or quit a job, or determine if you were really being rejected, is to think to yourself, okay, am I taking this slowly enough? Am I thinking this through? Is this person's opinion of me important to me, right? I don't know this cop that lives in my building that well. I mean, I only learned his last name like a week ago. You know, I don't know much about him except what he does, what floor he lives on. He has a dog, and we talk every now and then. That's all I know. So attaching some importance to what he might think about me is really inconsequential. Like, I really don't care. Like, he's free to his opinion. I'm free to my opinion, right? But then again, I don't know exactly what he meant that day. And relationships are determined over a time period, right? You don't get all of the information up front about who someone is or what a situation looks like for a very long time. We're talking years, people, years. You're not gonna, people are on their best behavior for 6 months. You're not even gonna see who the real person is, until that day where they shit at your apartment and it like stinks everything up, right? Like that facade starts to drop and you really get to see who they really are. So going slowly helps develop for you. For me, slowness equals trust over time, right? It's easy to feel excited about someone or a situation and think like, this is the one, this is the guy, this is the job, this is the house I'm gonna buy. But you need to see over time. Does that house have like a 50-year-old roof and actually the house is really unstable structurally? Or is a person really unstable structurally, right? Taking things slow helps deal with that rejection factor, right? This way you're not putting more trust and more value into someone that's actually worth it. My name is Jen. You've been watching BPD Woman. We've been talking about handling rejection when you have BPD. There's so much hope for progress and recovery. Borderline personality disorder is one of the disorders that has the highest recovery rate. There's also the most information and research about the disorder. There are more treatment modalities, and especially DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, that is designed specifically for those of us with BPD. Thank you again. You've been watching BPD Woman. Please consider subscribing, and in everything you do and how you think and how you treat yourself, please be effective.